away and everyone missed it.
Here comes Carla Nazaro.
Yes, please.
I'm just letting everybody in, right? Because it's a public meeting.
It is a public meeting. I am. I mean, we would like to know, but I'd like to know who they are before they come in, because in case they're Zoomers that are not supposed to be here.
Here comes John Brzezinski.
I don't know why I think the library is going to be a target for Zoom bombing, but it's probably not really.
I don't know. Did you see
it's
pretty bad.
What?
Yeah. No, we'll talk about it another time. We'll talk about it another time. It's an operational thing. Hey, Carla.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Carla.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you.
Comes Andrew Grimes. I'm just going to announce people as they come in.
Yes, I know. I feel like you should have like a tux and tails and be
the Marchioness of
the Earl and Countess of. All right. I think, actually, is that everybody?
Might be everyone, I think. Yeah, I think we can get started.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hi, everyone. Good to see you all. Happy New Year. So I guess we can call to order. And is there any public comment that came through for tonight? I didn't hear anything, but okay.
Nothing to the website.
No. Okay.
Email address.
Okay, sounds good. So, okay. So the first thing then is the approval of the minutes from December 13th.
So just to be absolutely correct, I think you're supposed to call the meeting to order and then roll call all the people.
Oh, right.
And
okay.
Because it's virtual, I think so.
Sure. I can back up and do that then. Okay, so we'll call to order. So I'm just going to go through on my screen. So let's see. I have Monique. Okay. Monette.
Here.
Cherry.
Here.
John.
Here.
And Andrew.
This is why we do a sound check.
And I'm here as well. Right. Thank you for that reminder, Amy. I know it's been a little bit since we've been virtual. So thank you. Okay, so it looks like we are all here. Okay, so for the approval of the minutes from December.
They look fine to me, so I would say that we should move that we approve them. The minutes of whatever the date was.
December 13th. I second that as well, Cherry. I think they look good. Does anyone else have, or unless anyone else had anything?
I thought they looked good.
Okay. All right. So I'll go through. So I say yes on that. Monique?
Yes.
Monette?
Yes.
Cherry?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
And Andrew?
Andrew, we can't hear you.
Maybe he's muted.
Nice. This might be a connection problem. Or you could type your answer.
Yeah, you could use the chat, Andrew, if that's easier. Andrew, can you hear us okay?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry.
No problem.
It was working half an hour ago, but.
Do you, Andrew, approve of the minutes?
Yes, I approve.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. That's great. Okay. All right. So then the next is the collection services report for circulation digital collections usage.
So I'm going to just hand it over to Jamie, who will introduce her team and the visitors that are here, and put myself on mute and listen to the glory that is the collection services.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jamie Penny. I'm the head of collection services. And we just prepared a little report for you folks to hear about how we're handling our collection, specifically with respect to a lot of the digital services that we've been offering and sort of the trends coming and going with digital versus print or physical materials. helping me on this report was Lauren Gardner, who's the head of borrower services, and there she is, second in my row, and Kath Jeffrion-Scannell, who is a librarian who works in technical services, which is one of the divisions of the collection services department. So we ran a lot of statistics to help us inform what we were going to say tonight. We're not going to show you a lot of charts and statistics, but we just want to give you some sort of general trends. The first thing I thought might be interesting was to share a little timeline of how things went for us during the COVID pandemic, which is of course still continuing. And Amy, I can share my screen now because I'm a host. I just want to share one little bit which outlines the dates that happened. Let me see if I can just share my screen. Share screen. This one. Here we go. So you can see our key dates here. Lauren Gardner prepared this report outlining just so the building closed on March 14th of 2020. The very last day was a Saturday. It was like a fire sale. It was very, very busy. And then we closed outright for 3 months, but only 3 months, which I thought was pretty good. In June of 2020, that summer, we started doing curbside appointments. So people would drive up and pick up the books. You all remember that. In October, we started opening by appointment. People could come and use computers and then browsing appointments. In January of 2020, we had a little setback and we closed again because things were spiking. Then in February, we opened.
I have a question,
yeah.
Jamie.
Yes.
Is it January 2020 or January 2021?
Oh, you're right. It is January 2021. I'm sorry. That's my mistake. Yeah. Thank you, Cherry. January of 2021, we reclosed, and then February of 2021, we reopened by appointment. Since June, however, we've been fully open, no appointments, no curbside. People are coming in, picking up their holds, and they are now returning their books through our automated materials handler. So that was just an interesting little timeline, I thought, about what things have been, what has been happening in the library. So what else has been interesting? We looked at, we were looking at not just our circulation statistic on particular materials, but also sort of the trends in the library. And we're trying to keep track of whether or not we are coming back to pre-pandemic levels. And we are not quite there, but the average, hang on, let me look at my stats here. Yeah, so people are checking things out more using the self-check. And we still have the second highest circulations in Noble, which is behind Beverly. If we look at our circulation numbers, it does appear that we are back up to pre-pandemic levels. But in October of 2019, we automated a very important service, auto renewal, which means your books just automatically get renewed as long as no one's waiting for them. So now it looks like we're the same, but auto renewal accounts for 34% of our total stock. So we are definitely getting back there, but we're not quite there. And maybe this will even out and be our, sort of new normal. Maybe it will increase again. The pandemic is still not done with us, so we'll see what happens.
I'm not exactly sure how auto renewal alters percentages.
Oh, because if you count our total circulations, auto renewals account for a circulation. So like if somebody checks out a book and then there's 2 renewals on it, that looks like 3 circulations. Whereas really just 1 book being checked out by the same person.
I get it. Okay. That makes sense.
And it's a really great service. People are crazy about it. We really love it.
Oh, I love it myself.
It does make some of our data a little bit harder to, do the apples and oranges thing.
Wouldn't other libraries have the same situation?
Yes, all Noble. It was a Noble-wide institution of this auto renewal policy. So every single
it was library by library, but almost everyone has done it, but not everyone.
Oh, thank you, Lauren. Thank you for that correction. Most people, I think, are doing it, but yeah, it's a really great service. People who aren't doing it maybe are just sort of too busy to have dealt with it, but the patrons love it.
Yeah.
Actually, I think the ones who may not be doing it are academics.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that could be.
Right. So academic libraries make you actually go renew your book.
Most academic libraries let you keep the book for the whole semester, though.
If you're a professor, yes.
Yeah, well,
not necessarily if you're a student.
Maybe not students. No, that's true. Yeah. That's true.
Yeah. So let's see if I have any more salient points. Lauren, is there anything you wanted to add there? We're really happy that the self-check use is slowly recovering and that people are coming into the library to to return their materials through the AMH. We're really glad to see that increasing. But Lauren, maybe you have some more specific.
Yeah. Yep. The self-check is back up to pre-pandemic use, and it's been trending up, so it might even keep going. And as Jamie mentioned, I kind of compared some where we looked before we were doing the auto renew versus now, and when I like corrected for those extra, because a lot of times people, especially since we don't charge fines, like would just keep something for 6 weeks, not bother renewing it. Now we get those 2 renewals since it automatically goes. But throughout the summer, I looked at like 3-month intervals. We were at about 68% of our, and this is just physical items too. I wanted to clarify. I wasn't sure if that was clear in the meeting.
Oh yeah. That's
we were about 68% of what we had been the same time period of 2019. But in the fall, we've gone up to 78% of that. So we are seeing that's a pretty good increase. So hopefully we'll see it keep going up. But as Jamie's going to show or talk about some of our digital things, we may be seeing over time some of our physical circulations not recover, but our digital circulations are increasing. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Overall, I'm happy with the amount that we're doing, and I think we've seen a lot more people coming in, which is nice.
Yeah, a healthy bounce back. And that segues very nicely into me talking about some digital materials circulation. Well, you know, so even before the pandemic, I was running statistics back from like 2015 just to see, you know, and I was doing media, so DVDs, audiobooks, music CDs, etc. That's the kind of stuff I was looking at, because that is the thing that is really most trending towards digital and streaming. That's just, I feel like there's almost been a sea change in how people take media in. So even before the pandemic, you could see that DVDs were circulating less. It was a slow decline, but pretty steady. And we introduced, hang on, where are my notes? We introduced Hoopla and Canopy, which are our two main streaming services. Canopy is strictly video, I believe, and Hoopla is video, so movies, TV shows, also audiobooks and ebooks. And we started that, and here we go, I wrote down, we started offering streaming services in June of 2018. So the circulation of our digital and streaming options has been slowly and steadily rising since 2018. It increased by 70% as of February 2020. And then, of course, the pandemic hit and it doubled in March of 2020. We really do think that some of the factors that, there's a lot of people love a book, but even the people who would like to get something quickly, there's a technological hurdle the first time you do it. And it can be very daunting to go, all right, I see that the book I want is available in ebook and I do have an iPad, but I can't stand it. But the pandemic really made everybody overcome some big technological hurdles. So we saw and that was all that there was to be had. There was nothing else. So the digital media pretty much skyrocketed in those 3 months that we were closed completely. It was the only option. But there are a lot of other factors that are sort of driving this digital. I'm going to let Michael in. There's a lot of other factors. And one of them is simply that cars, for example, and laptops are no longer really being manufactured with CD drives or CD players. So audiobook, every new car, as soon as you trade in your own car, you cannot play audiobooks anymore. And that's where people tend to listen to them. So we've been seeing a lot of the e-audio rising and the physical audio declining. Also, many films and TVs that are on streaming services don't release stuff on DVD anymore. They just don't. I mean, they don't want you to own it. They want you to be able to just stream it, pay for it, month after month, year after year. And you never physically own a movie anymore in a lot of ways. And some of those really popular, the HBO series that were so famous in the past, The Sopranos, et cetera, used to eventually come out on DVD and people could take the whole season home and watch it. But that's happening less and less with a lot of the streaming services like Netflix, Disney Plus, Apple Plus. Some of the most popular things just aren't available on DVD. It's really hard to get hold of them. For music, the CD collection it's very, people my age take it out, put the CDs in their computer and then burn them onto their phone and listen to them like that. But that's not really the way people nowadays listen to music. They use Spotify and other streaming services. So we do have music streaming through Hoopla, and I guess it is quite a pretty good collection. There's more popular stuff, more popular music, the hits of today than there are, for example, movies. Some of the movies are older, the tried and true classics, but the most cutting edge movies aren't available on our streaming services. But the music sort of is. So a lot of people are using that. And then you never own it. You don't own that music. You just listen to it when you feel like it. You stream it or download it. The other issue right now, of course, is there's a lot of supply. Everybody talks about the supply chain problems. And that's really been an issue with our vendors too. We're getting books later, we're getting movies later. Everything is late. People are like, where's that book that was published on that day? But we don't have it yet. There's just been a lot of supply issues that really are an issue for us. Let me see if there's any other little numbers that I think are interesting. I also wanted to talk a little bit about Overdrive Advantage and Overdrive, which is Overdrive is the service that Noble provides to download ebooks and e-audiobooks. I think many of you have used Libby. That's the thing that most people use. We also, Reading Public Library and every library in Noble can set aside part of their budget for specific Overdrive titles that circulate first to Reading patrons. So if there are any Reading holds on it, that's who it's going to go to first. It's called Overdrive Advantage. And then if there are no Reading holds, then it can go to anybody in Noble. And if there are Noble holds, then it can go to anybody in the state. And every single network is operating like this. So there's a lot of sharing of that digital e-audio and e-books across the state, which is very beneficial. You can get a lot of things on audiobook or e-audiobook if you're interested in, taking that technological leap and downloading them and listening to them on your phone on the way to work. So I just had some fun facts of trends that we were looking at too, which I think you'll find interesting. So Kath did a really interesting little study of she took the top 25 fiction titles and she just looked at how many of them we had, how many different formats we had them in, and what their circs were like. And of the top 25 fiction titles, of course, the highest circulating ones were the physical books. And we bought multiple copies of most of them too. So there are a lot of circs to be had for that. Of the top 25, we had 250 copies. So that averages out to at least 10 a copy with almost 3,000 circs, 2930 circs. We also got large print, and we got the CD, some sort of CD or MP3 or playaway audio version, and an Overdrive ebook and an Overdrive audiobook. So we have most of the most popular titles in 5 different formats. I just think it's really important. This has always been the problem, or not the problem, but the challenge in libraries is that formats come and go, and you just got to flow with the formats. There's always going to be some format that people are going to want to partake of. Of the top 25 children's circulating items, 13 of them were the backpacks that the children's room curates. They take a subject like pirates or vehicles or, princesses or space, and they take 10 books, maybe a couple of little workbooks, and they put them together in a backpack. And those are the 13 highest circulating items, or the 13 of the top 25, which I feel like is very interesting. Tied for number 1, Kath says, with under 90 circs each, were the Pinklicious backpack and the Vehicles backpack. So that's very interesting. And then, of course, of the 12 remaining, 8 of them are the Elephant and Piggy books by Mo Willems. And if any of you know any children, you'll know those books. They're very good, but it's that's what the kids want, these curated backpacks that the libraries work on, or these Mo Willems books. And of the teen books, of course, the top 25 circulating titles were all required readings, mostly summer reading lists. And we provided every single one of those titles in print, ebook, and e-audio and audiobook. That's another one we buy every single kind of format. So it just shows how it's important for us to work closely with the schools and collaborate with them. And also, I feel like it shows that our curated items are really quite valuable to our patrons, especially the kids and the families. They really like that. So basically, circulation in general is quite robust. It's bouncing back from the pandemic. Physical media circulation is also robust. It is declining, but it's still quite high. I think it still behooves us to continue to buy a lot of physical materials, as well as, we want to keep our budget up for both of those things. We are continuing to monitor these trends all the time, and we may well be phasing out some of these physical, especially like CD, audiobooks, and music, or we're going to limit the purchase, and we're going to take those chunks of our budgets and put them towards audio and streaming services. Also, the other exciting thing we're going to do, I hope, is a diversity audit of our collection, in particular our fiction collection. We've been trying to buy a lot of more titles. This is a thing that people are doing, a diversity audit, so that we see that we have lots of books by different communities: Black people, people of color, Indigenous people, disabled people, people with disabilities, LGBTQIA titles. So we want to make sure we have a lot of representation in our collection, even if they don't circulate that well. We just want them on the shelves there for people to get when they want to read somebody's life. So that's basically my report. I just want to reaffirm that curated and value-added content is really worth it. And close collaboration with the schools is really worth it and really important. So that's my basic presentation. And if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to speak. I know I talk fast. Sorry about that.
I want to add that, in addition to the teen collection and the children's collection, we also have a large print collection that gets obviously curated. Those books, not all the time, but many of our homebound deliveries that go to people who can't come to the library, sign up for homebound services. Many of those are large print, as are the deposit collections we've done at places. So we have in the past done deposit collections with, and this is really more public services, so I'm going to get them all wrong, but the various assisted living groups in town, buildings in town, as well as the senior center. We provide a book group for the senior center. So there's definitely, whenever we do anything like the book clubs, we try to offer, as Jamie said, the large print, the audio, the regular print, the ebook. So we do try to make those available, because we do know that there's a wide variety of learners out there and readers. So it's not as simple as buying, a book. And it's quite a lot of work.
Quick question, Jamie, thank you. That was really helpful to hear that data. I know that there's been some talk in the news about ebooks and libraries and like licenses issues, that with like lawmakers kind of getting involved to try to make it a little bit more equitable for libraries to have, I guess, fairer access to digital materials. Is that something, I admit, I read an article, I think it was in the Globe like a week ago or so, but the whole picture is kind of escaping me at the moment. But on like the library side of things, is that something that has been talked about in the state level?
Yes, very much so. Even in the national level, like American Library Association and other librarian organizations really are constantly trying to negotiate with publishers and, push back if publishers are being a little bit too restrictive about lending content. Every once in a while, some publisher will be like, no more, no more, you can only get a book there for 25 circs and that's it. There are a lot of different models, and it is very complicated. Sometimes you get a title with unlimited circs for X number of years, or a year or 2 years. Sometimes you get a title for up to 50 circs and then it goes away. And then you have to rebuy it again if you want 50 more circs out of it. So there's a million different models, and it's very complicated to keep track of it all, which is why we have Noble and Overdrive doing that for us. When we put an Overdrive order in, you have to click like 15 buttons. These titles are only good for 25 circs. These titles are only good for a year. You agree, you agree, you agree. It's very complicated. I don't know. I didn't read that article in the Globe. I should probably check it out, because every once in a while there'll be a fight with some publisher. But at the moment, I think things are fairly quiet.
I could talk about it a little bit.
Oh, did you read it? Good.
Yeah, and I used to work in ebooks.
Right.
So I have a background in that. So like there's a lot of issues, but there's two major issues. One is the price. So ebooks are like 3 to 10 times more expensive than
For libraries than a person,
Yeah.
for library.
Yes.
Yes. They're cheap for
Compared to a
people,
consumer and compared to the print copy. And, some of their argument was like, oh, well, print wears out. So we're going to charge more for this because it's not going to wear out. But then they also added and 25 circs because we think that's how long a book's going to last. So that makes the pricing a little less reasonable because it is wearing out. The second thing is that some publishers were plain just not making things available to libraries. So there was a publisher or an imprint of a publisher called Tor, and they were their big sci-fi publisher.
Sci-fi.
They decided to not let libraries buy what's called frontlist titles, which is usually something that was published in the last year. They just didn't want to let us buy that in E anymore. So the laws that we are seeing so I think New York and Rhode Island have implemented what like Massachusetts is talking about implementing. And the main part of that is publishers have to at least sell us their things. They can still sell it for 5 times the price, but
Gouge us, but
yeah, you can still gouge us, but you have to be willing to sell to libraries. So that was, I think, a key part of that article. And for a long time, so Amazon has their own publishing arm too, where people can publish directly with Amazon. And for a long time, they wouldn't play with libraries at all. And now they're starting to. But yeah, it's super complicated. But that's why it's a lot cheaper for us to buy 10 copies in print of something than it is to buy 10 copies in E. So a lot of people notice that it takes longer. It might take you 3 months to get a new book on Overdrive. It might only take a month to get the print one from the library. And that's why we can afford 2 copies of the digital one and 10 copies of print for the same amount of money.
That's so interesting. Thank you, Lauren. Yeah, because I mean, and it's so backwards from what it is for like just an average consumer, where typically the ebook price is a little bit less, right? Than physical. I mean, with exceptions, but
especially on Amazon.
yeah, right. So that's really interesting. That's helpful.
And I think also, right, so before publishers when there were print books, publishers didn't really consider libraries. There's a natural tension because authors really love having their books in libraries because we're able to keep more copies or different copies or, previous editions or something on the shelf. So authors really love having their works in libraries. And so they do want to work with libraries. But as a publisher, of course, they're trying to get a copy, well, geez, you used to buy 10 copies of James Patterson, but now you only want to buy 2 because you'd rather have more digital. So they're looking to make sure they can make a profit as well. So there's a natural tension there. Yeah, I mean, it's a natural tension, and I think it just needs to shake out a little bit. I will also add that even when you have an Amazon account or whether we buy them, these are when you have e-materials, they are I can't really think of an exception, but they're always leased. You technically don't own the information. So even though you've paid Amazon, or we've paid Overdrive, at any point a publisher can withdraw their book from the collection. And so if Amazon has an agreement with Tor Books, and then Tor says, well, we don't want to sell ebooks through Amazon, they can take all their books back. You don't actually own them. So in that sense, this is, intellectual property at a whole new level, because, even on your Kindle or your iPad, I'm in my head, I think, oh, well, I bought that cookbook. That's my cookbook. And the reality is that Amazon can take it back, and Overdrive could, whip it off of their collection if that's the deal that they have with the publisher. So it's definitely an interesting time to be working with licenses and copies and things like that.
And, I'm always hoping that the creators of the content get paid, the authors,
yes, I think that's,
you want them to get paid for their work. It's
Right,
not,
right.
you know, it's not what we're trying to do. We're not trying to.
And I think also we're not in competition with Amazon, and we're not in competition with bookstores. I think if we were really excited. We're very excited to have a store like White Limb in town because people do want to purchase books, and we want them to do that. We're kind of like a trial run. Sometimes people test out authors or test out books, so they're not sure, or they just would like to take home 15 books today, and they just, so I think it's a natural partnership. So I just want to make sure that we give a shout out to White Limb because we really do. We love working with them.
Bookstores have coexisted peacefully for a decade.
Totally.
Yes.
And they've partnered with the library on many events,
Absolutely.
where
Many
they sell
events,
books
so,
and we can have
yeah.
authors sign. So yeah, absolutely. It's a good
Exactly. So we love them. So
yes,
thank you.
definitely. That was really helpful though, Jamie and Lauren. Thank you for all that data and background info.
Yeah, and
And
I
I
think,
just-
if you need to, if you want to see some written copy of any of this, I can happily mail it to you. I just didn't want to give you a bunch of slides to look at.
I also want to, Kath hasn't said much, but Kath, who is our librarian one in collection services, that is a really relatively new position. Before we had collection services, we didn't really have a librarian position helping Jamie out with the actual, Jamie had to do, still has to do the cataloging. She still has to do the, managing all the accounts, and then, getting statistics together, putting the collection statistics together with the circulation statistics, which is what Lauren's working that. Having someone who's trained in this work has been super, super helpful, and moving her up from, starting the position in the first place, moving her up from 25 hours to a full-time position has, I think, really enhanced. She's going to be able to help out with this diversity audit. She's there to help. We work, I call her for everything. She's she's a utility player. She can do absolutely
she says
anything.
it all the time. She goes, I'm just here to help the ball club. That's her motto.
So Kath has been a very, and that's been since COVID that we've been able to add that position. It's been really helpful because that focus on, we know how to process print books. We know how to process CDs. But this is a lot more management, and having someone with that specialty is really helpful. So thanks, Kath.
Thank you. That sounds really helpful.
All right.
Great.
All right.
So you all do not have to stick around if you do not wish to.
All right, then I will say good night and enjoy the rest of your meeting. Really,
Thank you.
Email me if you want anything in writing.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Yep.
Thank
See
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. That was great.
So
Okay.
I have one assignment for everybody, or for people who expect to be trustees next year, is to think about what you heard tonight and to think about questions that might, as they come over, think about this in context of our collections. And I think what happens oftentimes is we'll be sitting in a meeting and someone will be like, I really wonder what's going on with the audiobooks. And so it would be great to be able to proactively start, starting from now, be able to give Jamie and Kath and Lauren some assignments and be like, and this year we'd really like to focus on X, or how did that diversity audit go? Like, what are the things you really, really want to know about the collection? Because it is quite important. We have a lot of people dedicated to figuring out what we have, what we make available, how we make it available. Is it being used? And even if it's not being used, what's the value of having it available? So that's your assignment as trustees, is to think about what else you can learn from these people.
Sounds good. Okay. So the next item is the tuition assistance policy review and discussion.
Yeah. So Monette, thank you so much. I had something to present to you back in November. We tabled it for December. This is a policy that, and I provided 2 copies. One had the red lines and edits and changes, and then the other was just the whole merged final copy. This was the first question which Monette asked is, how do we fund this? And does it come out of your regular professional development? If the money's available in professional development, yes. There are also gifts, and is also state aid. And it would also require, obviously, an application. So it's not something someone could do. It's like, oh, by the way, I took 3 classes, can I have some money? It has to be part of a development plan. It has to be, I'm working, taking this class because I eventually want to get a certificate in librarianship or whatever it is, and that would be approved, and I would be able to budget for any money. The idea behind this, though, is I do think that since COVID, I think always, but particularly since COVID, we've been really aware of the constant learning environment that our staff work on, both as professional librarians, but even also our paraprofessionals, and as they progress and get certified in various things. We are all learning things that were not taught in library school, and maybe even aren't taught in library school now, but that we have to learn about in order to do our job, in order to be a community center and to be a community civic service. So I just feel like having something in our back pocket that gives people the opportunity to explore, give them a benefit to explore continuing education at a professional level. This is not just like a webinar. This would be someone taking a full-on, course credit. So, Manette, did you have any thoughts or anything to?
Yeah, just one thing I wanted to add, and it's, I think the policy looked great with the updates. And so it's not an addition to the policy, but it's, I think, how you frame it to everybody. I think you should think about how you share up front that there are limited dollars.
Okay.
And like I said, it's not part of the policy, but I think you want to frame that so that the expectation isn't, well, if I apply and I meet all the criteria you've laid out here, I'm definitely going to get approved.
Okay.
That's a good point too, Monette, because I mean, of course, like if financial situations change year to year, but someone's in the middle of a program, and so the way something looks in the fall semester might look different the following fall, so that's actually a really good point. And just to kind of give people the ability to like plan ahead for that. So yeah.
I think we can do that. I think I see this sort of sitting not so much on our town website as a user policy, but sort of adding this to our employee handbook, and maybe we can add a paragraph there saying, on a limited basis by application, subject to change, and all sorts of caveats in there.
Right.
And obviously it's a big difference. Like if one person applies and, I think we've got some maximum on there and it's not a problem and there's just one person and we can handle that. And then the next year, 5 people apply. It may be that we can't do the maximum, maybe that, okay, everybody, instead of getting $500, they get $250 because that's just where the money falls. But I do think that, I don't think it's meant to, ensure that people get continuing education. It's just to, give them, a little bit of a bonus, because we are asking them also not to do it on work time, which is a big deal. Mm-hmm.
You might set a limit to how much money you would expect to have on a given year. For example, we'll have $5,000 available this year, or $5,000 is our limit period, or whatever.
Sure.
I also wonder too, you don't have anything, I believe I mentioned it at the November meeting, that many places, if they have tuition assistance, they also expect you to work a certain period of time after you've had the assistance. I know there was an issue here at the library many years ago, where someone went to, I don't know, wherever, Simmons or somewhere, got lots of assistance from Reading, and then immediately left Reading. And basically, Reading paid for her to be able to go someplace else with a degree in library science. And there was talk at that time, and I thought it was a policy that people would need to have. If you've gotten so much money or this amount of money or whatever, you have to stay at least a certain period of time after you've after you've used our assistance. So I don't know if you want to include that or if it isn't important anymore, but I just tossed that out.
Yeah, and that, Sherry, my experience has been, and Andrew, as a lawyer, jump in here and correct me if I'm wrong, but my experience has been, it's almost unenforceable. And the amount of money we'd spend trying to enforce something like that far exceeds what we've reimbursed them. And so it becomes not worth it. So we could add that to the policy, but understanding it's likely not enforceable.
I don't know whether the schools, I mean, when I was teaching in Wakefield, if you left, you had to pay the money back that you'd gotten within the period of time that you were supposed to have stayed. So if I got $1,000 to take a class, I was supposed to stay 2 years after that. If I only stayed 1 year after, I don't know whether I had to pay the whole $1,000 back or just half of it. But anyway, I was expected to do that, and I never assumed that if I left, I wouldn't have to do it. So I never left anyway until I left. But I mean, I never thought that I could get away with it somehow. But maybe that was just me being naive or honest or some fool thing.
Returning those books on time, Cherry. Jeez.
Yeah. And that is the way I've seen it done before, is that it's not that you can force them to stay, but they might have to pay back a prorated share of what you paid for their degree.
Right.
I think my only, I'm sorry, Andrew, go ahead.
I'm not sure. We're not talking about tons of money, I have a feeling here. So
yeah. It really is a very small amount of money. Like most like for a library class, I believe it'd be $3,000 to $4,000, and we're saying a maximum of that's a class. So so in 2 classes, like 1 class a semester would be $8,000, and we're saying a maximum for a full-time person, I think, is $2,000. So it's barely a quarter. Yeah, max per year, and it might not even be that if there were more than one person asking. I mean, we're certainly not going to pay for the degree. Right. I know the UMass Lowell classes I was taking for credit were like $3,500. So that was UMass Lowell. I'm not saying they're the cheapest game in town, but that's certainly not the most expensive game in town. So,
I mean, I like that. I really like the way the policy looks, and thank you, Monette and Amy, for working, so much on it. I think it looks, I like that, with the way it's written, it seems like it would convey to the staff that like we value their development and their education, which I think is really important. And so that, providing that, I don't know what the right word is, not incentive, but that, that we're willing to contribute to it is like we're investing in whatever they can give to the community, with what they take from the program, if that makes sense. So I like the way it looks right now. The one question I had was, is this, the money only goes towards the tuition or the fees, right? Not any materials?
Yeah. Okay. Well,
and I only ask, that's all. I only ask because I know sometimes, depending on how much like a book costs, if people wanted to allocate it towards material instead, I wasn't sure if that was an option or if we just wanted to keep it to fees and tuition.
I had been envisioning fees because you'd have your tuition bill and it would just be one big chunk of change. But, again, like I definitely had a higher education in mind. I didn't have, I wasn't really thinking about I was assuming that it would just be easier. I'll be honest, I was thinking paperwork wise, it's easier because you have one receipt, you have one grade, and you have one reimbursement form.
So. Absolutely. Okay. That was just my question. Because I know, those books can cost almost as much as,
Yes, they can.
Yeah.
Yes, they can. Yeah. So if you can think about it, you could also probably take a vote or make a motion, or it's up to you.
Move to approve the plan as presented.
Second.
Okay. I'll just go through. So I'll start with myself. I say yes. Cherry?
Yes.
Monique? Monette?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
And Andrew?
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you. That's great.
Great. So,
I'm sorry, who seconded it?
Monette did.
Monette.
Okay, thank you.
so only because I find it very helpful for me, I will have this added and out to the staff by February 1st. And plan on doing like sort of a 1-year report just to see if I figure if we can get it in February 1st and anybody doing their annual reviews for, April, May can get it built into their development plan. So I'll hopefully give you a report in like a year. If we don't have any takers, at least maybe we'll have someone who's like, oh, I'm thinking about it. So hopefully I'll be able to give you a report in a while. So, but I'll get this out to the staff by February 1st.
That's great.
Well, hopefully sooner, but yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Okay.
Maybe you can at least tell them that it's going to be available.
Yes, exactly.
Great. Okay, so patron rights and responsibilities policy review and discussion.
Yeah, so there were no major changes here. There were just minor corrections that I had redlined. I think one was changing, equal to equitable. I think also just sort of streamlining some things. We also had some people go through and read it for continuity. And so the place that is most redlined is the enforcement of policy, I think. And this is now really aligned with how we are handling things. We realized that this is part of our policy and how we handle disruptive behavior. And we've had this discussion before. Sometimes it's 3 steps. Sometimes it's we talk to you and then there's written warning and then there's a no trespass. Sometimes we talk to you and then you go right to no trespass. And it's, so we wanted to build in some, independent judgment and discretion into how we process this. And we also wanted to be very clear that it's not, those decisions are made based on the severity of what's happening. Even among 2 individuals, you can take similar behaviors. The severity of it can be quite different. And then clearly, obviously, if it's threatening or anything, it would go immediately to the police. So that's the part that has the most changes. There's really no new information. It's the exact same thing. It's just, I hope, a little clearer on how we would proceed with that. We have had some, I think with the masks, COVID and everything else, we've had some excellent practice doing this. So I feel like it's extremely reflective of how we are able to handle disruptive patrons. And, just to reiterate, we don't necessarily throw people out or ask people to leave or get people in trouble for not wearing a mask, even though that's the violation of the policy. It's really more on the behavior. So this is where we really kind of need to focus on the fact that we're dealing with behavior. If the behavior's, problematic, and their attitudes are problematic. So
are people allowed to remain in if they do not wear a mask?
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to call the police on them. That's really not an appropriate use of time, I think. But depending on how they respond, I suppose if someone was calm and measured and proceeded to go on and just not use the mask, we probably wouldn't chase them down. Most people tend to get pretty, and we haven't had to do this very much. We've been able to de-escalate. I think that's the other thing as we work. In fact, I have something next week, another refresher on de-escalation, and we have all our staff work on a lot of those skills on how to work with those situations, so that we're more proactive. But I think when the goal here is so that our patrons and our staff feel that they are, I want to say protected because we can't fully protect everyone, but that the point of this is to have a tool in our box when things like harassment and bullying and really sort of just mean behavior kind of rears its head, that we have something to fall back on. I suppose someone could totally ignore it. And I think if they were blatantly that problematic, we probably would issue a no trespass order, in which case then we have a legal repercussion. I think that's the one reason when we get to escalation is when people refuse to comply wholly, and they do it in a way that's pretty confrontational.
Got it.
Amy, in the enforcement of policy section, one question, I apologize if I asked this last year when we talked about the
Okay.
policy, but can you just walk me through why we notify the schools when a minor receives a written warning or no trespass?
The no trespass, definitely, because a lot of times students are told to go to the library, and if they're issued a no trespass, they are allowed to come onto the property with an adult, but we need sort of verification that it's, we just let the schools know. I think the other reason we do, and this has just been something we've always done, and it could be, I'm happy to rethink it, but part of the issue is to, if they have anything they need to share with us in terms of that would be helpful in terms of handling the situation. You know what I'm saying? So that if there's, and it's not, I mean, I have the same discussion, like I've called over to the police department and we've dealt with someone and we both speak very carefully about what we're doing because we're trying to protect the privacy of the individual, but there might be care issues. So sometimes we speak with school officials or we let them know that it's really more for them, actually, to let them know that we are having trouble. And for some, like as we would do with the police, for some folks, that might be a red flag, that there's a change in behavior. So it's really just more of a making sure, particularly in this case, that someone who's a minor or vulnerable is, I mean, especially if it involved bullying or anything like that, we'd want to let people know that there were some issues going on in the library.
Okay.
Does that make any sense? I hope.
Monique, go ahead, Monique.
Sure. How often has your staff had to confront individuals at the library? And is it, if you can say, is it pretty even in terms of adults as well as young folks, or what does it look like?
I mean, I'll tell you what I see, and I was a teen librarian. I mean, I would say that the most eye rolling and frustration that you hear from staff is probably regarding young adults and teens. The actionable stuff is probably 50-50 regular grown adults and teens. I think we have a pretty long leash. We have a pretty welcoming space and understanding our staff, many of whom care for younger people themselves and so have dealt with emerging adults in their own homes, so they understand the frustration. The frustrations, like, I got to come to work and deal with these teenagers too. So there's a little frustration there, but in general, I would say that the no trespasses that we've ordered have been almost 50-50 for adults as they are for young people. And the younger the person, generally we can usually mitigate that with a written warning or verbal warning. I would say of those where there's another responsible adult in the person's life, oftentimes those minors are marched right back down to the library and told to apologize and how sorry they are and they will never do this again. So we have a good community of parents. It's I think I shouldn't say parents. We have a good community of caregivers, I think. And, there's just a few young people, and there's definitely a few older people who are probably a little bit more on the vulnerable scale who kind of slip through the cracks. And we do try to give them as many chances as possible. I do think in the last few years, we have seen an uptick, particularly with adults, in very confrontational language and behaviors. Michelle, you can disagree if, and I think that's why, we have try and encourage the staff to do not just customer service training, but also, dealing with difficult patrons and de-escalation. Is that a good picture?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Amy.
Does anyone have any questions about the recommended changes for this policy?
I thought it looked really good.
And you'd like to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion. We accept the patron what is it, patron rights and responsibilities policy.
I'll second that. So Monique. And I say yes. Sherry,
Yes?
Monette,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
and Andrew.
Yes.
Great. Okay. Thank you. That looks great. So the space update.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of excited. We're getting a phone booth. We're getting a discounted phone booth. Yeah, so I reached out to the folks that helped us procure all the furniture for the build out, Total Office Incorporated, and because I figured they also know all like state bid lists and MHEC lists, and so I reached out to our contact there, and he's like, well, now that you mention it, we have a floor model that, you know, it's probably last year's floor model, so they want to make room for another floor model. And so they have a single, it has ventilation, it has lighting, so that when you open it and close it, it turns on the light and turns off the light, I guess, or it has a motion sensor in it. It has power. It is small, so you know, it's not really encouraging people to stand there for a long time. It can go right in the lobby area, and it is, I don't know that we'll be able to see into it, but it is physically visible right from the borrower services desk. So they were selling it at a much discounted price, and they just, you know, we basically just have to pay them to bring it over. So we're pretty excited about that.
Cool.
Awesome.
That's great.
Also, the office is almost all done. I just actually have to buy some furniture for that. So I'll be going through, I think I was looking at WB Mason. They have some furniture in stock. I think that's the other thing, as I was looking, a lot of places we're out of stock. So we're looking to get that. And the audiobooks are now completely in the book sale room. The shelving has all been transferred, so that's moving right along. I did double check with the shelving company that our order was placed for the shelving in the turret, in the lobby turret, so that has been placed. She's like, "Yep, just keep waiting. It's going to be months. Just keep waiting." So we have that in place and something to look forward to. She seemed to think that having it ready for the summertime was going to be fine. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else space related. Nothing jumps to mind, but I feel like we've kind of been making progress on some of this stuff. So this is great.
It's good.
Awesome.
Great. Thank you. So the financial update.
Richard Pattison. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say it was Richard Pattison? Was it Erlen Anderson? Did I get it wrong in the report? I can't, Michelle's. I need to double check that. Was the estate that, was it Susan, was that Mr. Pattison's daughter?
Yes.
Or was,
Yes.
Okay, it was Mr. Pattison's daughter.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I was afraid we had a lot of in-memory gifts this year. The estate of Richard Pattison left us $5,000. And so it was for books. So I went ahead and put that into our gifts under books. So we definitely have even more money to spend in gifts for books. I just wanted to take a moment, wanted to thank Michelle for handling taking in of the check and everything. But his daughter, who came in and gave us the check, was, well, you can say, Michelle, just.
I showed her around the library, and she was really quite moved because the library had meant so much to him. So it was very sweet and touching.
Yeah. So it's nice. I mean, his passing is obviously very sad, but it's good to know that we have community members that are very attached to our service and our building, and really the number of people that remembered him was really quite amazing. So it really was lovely. The financial report, it looks like there's really nothing currently outstanding in the fiscal year 22, other than there's just that, you know, we are running under budget with salaries. We're trying, mostly because we still haven't hired the DESJ position. We are trying to get as many subs hired and trained as we can. They're few and far between, but we have the time to do training. We have we have a lot of people that are still struggling to take their PTO time. So I'm encouraging with burnout and everything, really encouraging people to take the time. We have the subs, we can afford it. So we're kind of encouraging people to work with their shifts on that. So any questions about the budget-y kind of stuff? Okay, the FinCom meeting, I think I have the FinCom meeting. It's in early March. I'll get you guys, get you all those dates for that. There's really not that much. It's kind of a December is usually kind of a boring month, financially speaking. Halfway through the year. Director's report.
Yes.
I was really excited to see that we had 32 and a half volunteer hours. Manette, you had emailed me about volunteers, and we'll get back to you. I'm not quite sure where we are on volunteers. It's been, some of the projects have been, on again, off again. So I'm not quite sure where we are in the rest of volunteer work. The children's department does have a regular volunteer that comes in. Jamie has a volunteer that helps out in tech services. A lot of the other volunteer programs, like I know this time last year we were doing study buddies, but I think that was virtual. So I'm not sure if they're doing that again, and I'll check into that because those are all young adult volunteers. We were really excited to have the Coolidge students coming back in for tours. I think it was a little anxiety ridden, not only because of COVID, but we also had a lot of new staff. Allie was new. Megan McCabe, our new teen librarian, was new. We had Melissa Selden had never experienced that. Lisa Racine had never, children's librarian, had never been through a tour. So we had a lot of new staff who had never knew what it was like, didn't know what I originally knew as the cookie tours, and then became the 6th grade tours, and now and it's something that's gone on for decades bringing the students here. So we haven't had Parker in yet, but we did do Coolidge, and taking these students around, exposing them to the full library. Many of them, you didn't even know there was a ground floor. People were like, oh my goodness, what do you mean there's a whole teen spot? Some of them knew, but many of them didn't. Some of them came prepared to sign up for a library card. So it's just a really exciting time to get young people, sort of transitioning into new spaces all over the building. So it was pretty exciting. The other thing is we have Kate Sanino working on the Reading and Reading, which is a new group. Those of you who have kids in the public, actually probably just Monette, I don't even know if you got anything about it. Actually, Monique, you may have gotten something too with kids still in the system. This is to look at early literacy issues in Reading. So Kate's going to be representing the library on that. We had 11 applicants for the DESJ position. I skipped over Andrea Hogan, I'm sorry. Andrea Hogan, who is our current Senior Library Associate. She received her level 2 Paralibrary certification. They have 4 levels of certification through the Mass Library Association, and it's not, it's not necessarily getting your library degree, but it really gets you on the basics of getting there. And many people who finish their level 4 actually go on to professional positions. They have to take library basic techniques, and there's a lot of courses work that they have to do, as well as building a portfolio of work that they've done. So we're really excited to have had Andrea Hogan do this, complete the level 2 certification. There were 11 applicants for the Directorate of Equity. We've had 3 interviews, and then the 4th one is tomorrow. All 3 interviews that we did last week are excellent candidates, and we're putting them forward for the 2nd round of interviews. Andrew and Monique, I've been, nagging you with doodle polls and things like that to try and get them on the schedule and get them hired, get an offer out hopefully sooner than later. So we're pretty excited with, the first round we had 6 applicants. This time we had 11. So, I kind of feel like if we don't get one this time, the 3rd round will get even more. So it really is a matter of timing. We actually had one of our candidates ask us, why have you waited so long to hire someone? And they clearly hadn't thrown their hat in the ring back in August. And we had to explain that, yep, we've been out there. We're still looking for the right fit. So it's really great. quite excited. I think that's really it, other than, you know, the other points that I had in the written report. I think just a general comment. December is usually a little bit quieter with the holidays and whatnot. My sense is with this current COVID surge, we are seeing a fair amount of stress of, you know, coming into work and being, you know, on the front lines. The town did put in a mask mandate. Doesn't mean so much for the library because we've already had one in the building. The mask mandate is for 30 days in town, all buildings inside. You have to wear a mask. We are looking into purchasing, or the town is purchasing masks that we can hand out for our staff because they are recommending, you know, the surgical and or KN95 rather than just the cloth masks. So we're trying to get those for our staff as well. The town is working on purchasing rapid tests because obviously we can't get them anywhere, but to get people back on shift if they've been exposed or if they were, you know, if there's a reason in that after those 5 days, it's best practices to do a test if you were in close contact. So some people seem to have had them and they're just using them. We're also trying to get them available for our employees to get them back on shift. So
I was going to ask you about that, Amy, if that's been, you know, a challenge, or you know, how that's been at the library with, I mean, I hope people are staying healthy, but you know, I know that it's come up a lot at my office where like just in terms of coverage and, you know, people being out or exposed or waiting for test results or looking for tests. So has that been
well, I mean, it is a challenge. The guidelines are pretty clear that if you're vaccinated and boosted and you've been in close contact and you don't have any symptoms, you should come on in and try and get a test around day 5, but wear your mask all the time. So, you know, I'd say the biggest change is that we are saying like, yep, wear your mask all the time, even in your office all by yourself, you know, wear your mask. Don't eat lunch with your, you know, office mates. Go away. Go. Don't eat. You know, to keep your mask on. So that's one of the biggest things. So there's that. The testing is stressful. I mean, and people are like, I can't find one. It's $25. I don't only make $20 an hour. What are you talking about? You know. So I mean, I got a hold of some. I had about 12. I've given a few away. Our staff is actually quite generous. We've had, you know, individual staff members bringing in boxes of KN95, and every once in a while I find an extra test kind of ends up in my office. So people have been very generous with when they've been able to find things, sharing it and giving it to other coworkers who really want it. But I would say, you know, what's today? I would say it was it last week, between people who are out with COVID and people who had COVID in their family, I would say at least 10, 11 of our staff members, so like a third to a half, you know, were impacted by it. So scheduling is, you know, tight.
Yeah,
scheduling is tight.
Yep, I know it's really hard.
And I honestly totally understand someone even being like, I just can't deal with going into work. I can't deal with going into work today because my kid, my husband, my partner, my mom is dealing with this, and I just need to be able to, you know. So yeah, it's been a little stressful. But as usual, you know, we have some folks that are really that are staying very positive, and you know, we converted all of our programming back to virtual just temporarily. And while some of that was because many, you know, our programs are often for children under the age of 5 who can't get vaccinated at all, so babies and toddlers, or over 65, that part of it was a little piece of why we went to virtual, but also, frankly, it was the staffing issue, because we can tape a virtual program, or we can, you know what I mean? There's a lot we can do virtually and then still have that person sitting at a desk. Whereas if they have to go take care of 8 children or lead a book group, you know, they can't also sit at a desk. So some of it was staffing issues. We just couldn't handle doing in-person programming and having people physically work the desk. It was getting a little tight. So
yeah, that makes perfect sense, I think. Okay.
Amy, what's going on with the system? I hear there's been trouble since Saturday.
Yes.
What's going on?
What
I-
system was this?
Yeah,
The system the
Evergreen.
library runs
Yeah. So Evergreen, there were some issues with Evergreen, which is our catalog, but basically I think if I read, and I'm not a technical person here, there were issues with the software that ended up lagging and slowing down the whole system, that it actually interfered with our, not necessarily public access, but our staff access to the internet. So it was basically, I don't know if it's like, almost like Evergreen was torrenting down like, movies or something. It was like hogging the entire bandwidth and we couldn't use it. So, so we had to use laptops and using the public Wi-Fi for some of the stuff, which we have to be careful of. We can't use public Wi-Fi for certain transactions. So, because it's not secure. So we were a little hobbled with the back end systems. The public computers worked fine. The public Wi-Fi worked fine. We were just we were struggling today. There's a lot of frustrations with that. So they said it's fixed now, and the indexing and whatnot that they're going to do is going to be done offline. I also think this is, I can't remember if I mentioned this before, but Noble is working towards moving a lot of their the work that they do with servers like our Evergreen. They're gonna do that remotely. Basically, they're gonna go to like an Amazon and just like put everything back out in the cloud. They are not equipped to really handle the amount of data that they have to maintain servers and then all this other stuff. So they realize a problem, and this was a really good example of why they need to invest in going to cloud-based systems. So, but yeah, hopefully it's fixed. I think around 6 o'clock today, I got an email saying it should have been fixed.
That sounds frustrating though. It's like, especially with everything else going on. It's like one more thing.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And I was like, fine, we're buying everybody laptops. They're going on Microsoft Exchange. We're just dumping the whole thing. And luckily we have some really good staff around me who kind of said, this was one time, Amy, you don't need to go ballistic. It's okay. We can manage this for a couple more days. I was like, just throw the whole system out. We're done. I can't take this anymore. It's fine. It's fine. So I did not blow the whole technology wad today.
That's good.
I know. I hope it sounds like it maybe is resolved, which is good.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Good. All right. Awesome. Was there any other business tonight? It looks like there's some good, horizons, future planning and professional development that's been happening. So that's good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The sign language, actually, we're really excited about to have, we have an employee, a librarian enrolled in the professional development series. It's specifically sign language for libraries. And then we will be doing mental health first aid for library staff in March. And that's like a 6-7 hour course. So there'll be one cohort that will have the opportunity to take a day and do it. And then the other cohorts will be able to split it up on two separate half days. We also have picked out June 3rd. I can't remember if I said this before. June 3rd is our staff day. We are looking at doing some, I don't want to say team building, but something along organizational citizenship or, cooperative working together. Basically, can we work together and not get mad at each other in a time of burnout? But also, Michelle has a great lead on someone who can do a presentation for us on land acknowledgement. I don't know if you want to mention that, Michelle.
So I checked in with the Massachusetts tribe because I had some questions about the Pawtucket, the area that we're on and the language of it. So I spoke to someone named Thomas Green, and he is the archivist, I guess, for the Massachusetts tribe. He helped me update the land acknowledgement, and he also was very eager to talk about the history of the area and the history of the Massachusetts tribe. He was talking about the Wampanoag, which we all know so much about, and how they weren't even formed until the 1930s. It was fascinating. So I put him in touch with the the programming librarians, and he hopefully will be coming to speak to us sometime in the future. So it was very interesting.
That's great. Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah.
That sounds like a really cool thing for us to have. And Amy, with the ASL training, I just was seeing something of, I forget, I think it was at Lowe's, where like employees who use sign language have like a button where they say like, I sign, if you need signing, it alerted patrons or customers in that case that they had that skill set. So, which I thought was pretty cool because, otherwise you might not know, who.
Yeah. Well, and we do that. We're trying to do that with pronoun buttons and, other things, just sort of in general, trying to find ways to, we're going to all have it'll be like going to Walt Disney World where you get all the little pins for everything.
Yeah. Collecting them. That's great.
Whatever. Yes. Yeah. We'll have lanyards that have all these other things, but I do think that's really important to make sure that, we have, it's not, you don't have to be deaf. I mean, they're just people that have hearing issues. So I think that's really, really, really interesting. So
that's great. All right. Any other business tonight?
No news is good news.
Yeah. All right. So I guess as far as like February goes, Amy, we'll just kind of revisit, whether we're doing virtual or in person, as we get closer, hopefully things are maybe going to get better.
Yeah. And I mean, I've definitely heard, the peak is what in the next of course that'll be February anyway. So hopefully we'll be back in person.
Yep.
I do think that, I mean, the nice thing is we got a pretty easy quorum when we did virtual. It's just not as fun. That's all.
Yeah. All right. So do we have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay. So I'm going to just go through Monique,
Yes.
Cherry,
Yes.
Monette,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
and I say yes as well. So sounds like we're good. Thanks, everyone.
Right,
I hope
Carla.
everyone stays healthy.
Carla, thank you.
Hi, thanks, everyone.
Carla, thank you for
Right.
joining us.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Yep.
Yes.
Good
you
night,
too.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Yep,
Bye, everyone.
bye-bye.